welcome to another episode of Half Court Press. He's Wilson Moore. I'm John Walker, and we're virtual today. For those of you who watch, you'll probably notice a lot more. Those of you who listen, we appreciate you as well. But anybody watching could tell that we're doing this on Zoom because we are having some technical difficulties in not just our newsroom, but across newsrooms worldwide in the country. No. So yeah, we're gonna take a 1 week hiatus from in person, hopefully, and we'll do that next week. But today, again, really, it'll just only affect people who are watching on Omaha.com, which you should do anyways.
Who
Um,
doesn't want to see our
but
faces?
yeah, we have faces for writing,
Yeah.
faces for radio.
If they
So
if
I
they
don't.
couldn't see our faces, they wouldn't see your beard. Like
They
that's
wouldn't see my beard. For all they know, I could still have the mustache
yeah,
from over the summer,
yeah.
and I don't. So what's that look like? Well, I don't know. Go over to
I gotta watch
omaha.com
to
to
find
find
out.
out. It was another eventful week. I think the theme that I've kept saying over the last few weeks, Creighton, Nebraska, playing for two entirely separate things that remain true, except Nebraska's outlook completely changed within the span of what, 5, 6 days,
5 days of I
five,
mean,
five yeah,
yeah,
six
like I
days.
mean, yeah,
Um,
less than a
and,
week.
yeah, and Creighton kept rolling. On one of the harder road trips that there is in the Big East. Exercise some demons as the latest part in an 8 game win streak, and we're going to dive into all of that, of course. But before we do, Wilson, how the heck are you, man?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, I like kind of accidentally stabbed myself while chopping vegetables making dinner a few days ago, but like other than that, I'm doing just fine.
Okay, what were
Like
you
in
making?
I was chopping like onions and tomatoes. I was making tacos, make pretty good tacos, not to
Okay,
brag. I mean, I'm clearly
okay.
not bragging because I can't properly use a knife in the kitchen, but I kind of pricked my finger and didn't notice for a second. So that was a day between games for Nebraska, so it was all good. Um, yeah. But yeah,
You
then I
needed
thought
the.
I would spice up the usual you asking me how I'm doing with just something a little more out of pocket.
I'm glad you did, because that is a finger injury in our industry is like
That's a
tearing an
good point.
ACL.
Yeah. Yeah, I can still type just fine, still hold the recorder. So
Off,
I'd say
uh,
it's early February. We're all banged up this point in the year.
mentally, physically, one way or another. Yeah, yeah, and Creighton, Creighton and Nebraska certainly are. I think we've seen that. It's kind of the dog days of the
Yeah.
season now. We're like caught in that in between of like the mid to late January dog days, and I don't know. I'd say we're about a week away, couple of weeks away from teams really solidifying their resume.
Yeah.
Obviously, things will transpire to the later part of this month and in early March. But this is really the time of year where you kind of cut your teeth and find out what you're gonna be come March, whether you're gonna be a part of the NCAA tournament or watching it from home or in that new Fox Crown Championship thing, or if you're gonna be I don't know, one of the teams that declines an NIT bid. We're gonna find out in the next couple of weeks, but we're caught in that in between right now. Um, Interesting enough, Nebraska has gone from bubble goodbye to firmly in, or firmly on the right side of the bubble, I should say, because it was a pretty big week for the Huskers. Last time we talked, they'd beaten Illinois at PBA, defended the vault, didn't let anybody come in and rob the bank, and then they went and did the Orwa trip. Um, as Mick Cronin says, sometimes when teams have to travel, they don't play as well. And but the good thing for Nebraska, they didn't have to see the Statue of Liberty twice in 2 weeks
No,
or
they saw the
whatever it
they saw
was.
the Space Needle. They saw I actually saw like on Instagram, I think they like took a trip there on their day
Okay.
off in Seattle. Um, but yeah, they saw the Space Needle. I don't know what landmark is in Eugene, Oregon, but they saw that too. Um,
Autzen, I guess.
yeah, yeah. I don't know, maybe they played they listened to Shout by the Isley Brothers.
Yeah,
But
on their bus, on their
yeah,
plane, you know.
yeah. But yeah,
Had
they
it
no, no, yeah,
had it on repeat. They were just shouting.
yeah, yeah. And they had a lot of reason to shout in those two games on the West Coast because Nebraska won both of them, which is not easy to do, especially that second game. And look,
Yeah.
we can dive into the whys of that West Coast swing and really even more broadly the last three games, including the Illinois game. But just, I mean, I think we need to just briefly take a look at just the what for a second. Nebraska left Wisconsin, if I am not mistaken, in 17th place in the Big Ten. That was like a week and a half ago. They are now in 10th. A week ago today, before they played Illinois, the question around Nebraska was, are they going to even make the Big Ten tournament? And now it is, if they take care of business in these last 8 games that they have, they will be in the NCAA tournament and not even like Dayton, like in the field. Like that is crazy how fast a their season has flipped. And like I said, we will dive into like the whys of it all, but I'm still wrapping my head around just how different the complexion of the season looks right now compared to 8 days ago.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about why and how this happened, because then I think that'll naturally take us to where they can go
Yeah.
and where they were compared to where they are. Because they knew that they were going to have to save their season. You know, we talked about that last week. If you said, okay, well, you lost at Wisconsin, well, if you can win Illinois and Oregon, and maybe you split the Washington trip, like maybe you lose to Washington or whatever, and you win this game and this game and this game, then maybe you have a tournament case. Well, they kind of laid all that to rest temporarily, and it all started in Eugene with that win over Oregon.
Yeah. I mean, I'd say it started at PBA. It started with that win over
Sure,
Illinois that
sure.
we discussed that last week. But I think if you're looking at how has Nebraska done this over the past 3 games, there have been two real common threads that have stuck out to me. One is the activity on defense. It has been significantly better in the past three games. Basketball is a funny game because it's hard to say why they couldn't play like that. And
Yeah,
but the thing is, no team, puts together a great, defensive like energy activity for 32 games in a season. They just don't. Every team has those. It comes and goes. It's a roller coaster. And Nebraska, for whatever reason, has been able to find something they didn't have defensively.
yeah,
I think the game, to go a little deeper into that night in Eugene, I think their performance, that game against Oregon was their best performance of the season, start to finish. I thought they controlled the game for like 37 of 40 possible minutes. Their activity on defense was really good, and like it felt like they were beating Oregon defensively in a way that they didn't even like Creighton or UCLA, when it's like Creighton and UCLA missed a lot of shots. It didn't feel like that as much with Oregon. It didn't feel like Oregon was clanging open looks. It felt like Nebraska was
yeah,
just putting the clamps down. And offensively, their two best players did their thing. Williams and Gary went for something like 28 and 23, if I'm not mistaken. And that leads me to my second point, my second main reason of why it feels like Nebraska has turned this thing around. Bryce Williams is playing like a superstar right now, and he wasn't on
no,
that 6 game losing streak. And Nebraska, the way this team was always built was, last year it could be anyone's night. It could be Bryce's night. It could be Casey's night. It could be Brink's night. CJ Wilcher had some absolute heaters. Jamarcus Lawrence could hit some shots. Like it could be anyone's night. This team is structured a little differently, and Bryce has to be the guy 85% of the time. You'll have your Connor Essegian is going to have his nights. He had a really good game last night against Washington, but generally this is going to have to be Bryce Williams' team. We've known this since November, and he has been fantastic in the past 3 games. He had a rough, like really regulation, and then had one of those just I'm the best player on the floor and I am not going to allow
Yeah.
my team to lose this game performances in overtime. And then like 27 or 28 in both games out on the West Coast. He was everything Nebraska has needed him to be. He was everything he can be, just you know, hitting threes, getting to the rim, getting to the free throw line, backing down smaller defenders until he gets to his spot, like in the mid range or in the paint. He has been incredible for Nebraska. Nebraska has needed it so, so badly in these past 3 games.
What do you think Bryce has done different over the past 3 games compared to those six? Has he done anything differently? Has he been more aggressive? Has there been better looks? Like what's been the biggest difference, Bryce Williams in that 6 game skid compared to Bryce Williams on this 3 game streak?
It certainly feels like he's been more aggressive. It's looked like he's kind of hunted his shot a little more. Again, I go back to like overtime against Illinois. Like that was Bryce time.
He
That was
was Peyton Sanford,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah, yeah. He was Peyton Sandford. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I wonder if because I haven't like looked at the stats on this, I wonder if they would bear that out that he's taking more shots, that he's been more aggressive. It certainly feels like he has. It feels like he's stuck to his strengths really well of, getting downhill and kind of getting to the spots where he is going to make shots where he is
Yeah.
best. And I think certainly, confidence and momentum have something to do with that. Just you see a shot go down and the ball gets rolling a little bit. And that's been kind of how this Nebraska team has been built all season. Like you think back even like early in non-con when they couldn't buy a three-pointer
Yeah.
and they were getting these open looks, and it was just kind of, once shots started falling, they leveled out a little bit more in a good way from the three-point line. It kind of feels like we've seen something similar, just the offense getting into a little more of a rhythm, finding what's working and sticking with it.
Good time of year to have that happen because now it has the Huskers, I think I would say confidently at the moment
Yeah.
on the right side of the bubble.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how they wouldn't be. I think Lenardi had them as one of the last 4 buys, in
Yeah.
fact. So they for the moment, and I've seen that in a lot of other bracketology and bracket projections too. So they have firmly unburst their own bubble and put themselves on the right side of it for the time being. And it is nuts that they were able to rattle off these 3 in a